Well, that happened. I hope you enjoyed this last week of absolutely nothing important happening in the world at all. I'm sleeping with my door
Mhm.
locked tonight. How are you guys doing? Welcome back to another episode of the 2KU Weekly Podcast. I'm Type of Joy 101, joined as always by Danny V and the Pig Bear for tonight's episode. And quick shout out before we get things started to Danny V. Our buddy streamed last night. I believe it was for a school project. Twitch chat making or a YouTube chat rather, making a college football team. And here's that team in action. I was partially responsible in helping in the creation of. This is the Wild Western Marshals out of Kingman, Arizona. Uh, Danny, Danny, in lieu of talking about how you've been doing lately, why don't you give us a brief introduction to this team?
Yep, this team is located all the way down in Arizona. These guys here are brand new, starting up their football program. They love the cowboy aesthetic, especially out there in the wild, wild west. So they definitely took in some inspiration. Their stadium was helped partially sponsored by Arby's, hence why the logos are on the field. And yeah, team, the group, they all decided that the colors of the school would be gold, the teal, and black. Pink right there is a special color to represent the sunsets that take place in the desert, and the teal is, of course, the teal blue skies that happen in the area. So, of course, this school is trying to make itself a name and trying to join the 2KU as some level in the universe.
And I think the location is definitely going to help because within the IRL NCAA, there aren't a lot of teams in Arizona. All NCAA teams in Arizona are in D1. Those are Arizona, Arizona State, Northern Arizona, and the non-football playing Grand Canyon. And and two of those teams are in the Phoenix Metro. Those are Tempe's Arizona State and Grand Canyon's location in Mesa. There's the other teams are in Flagstaff and Tucson. But out in Kingman, up in the northern part of the state, there's not really a lot of action going up there until you head further north to Vegas. There's a good bridge between there. There's a lot of states out there that don't have a lot of programs. Nevada, Wyoming, as well. New Mexico, too. But hopefully this will be a good branch for a bunch of other schools trying to create themselves some more traction. And I'm just watching this play right now, and we were just close to seeing the first ever Wild Western touchdown. We'll keep reporting on that, but we have breaking news in today's episode as we're going to get going. This particular information, we have 7 teams on the move now. And it all cycles around, bar one, it all cycles around one conference, the CUSA. Conference USA losing 2 more members as they'll be heading separate ways. First off, UTEP, spurred on by the Mountain West expansion and seeing their rivals New Mexico State pick up a deal in the Mountain West, the UTEP Miners have made their way into the Mountain West, and they'll be taking along the Wax Idaho to go with them. These are 2 different sides of the coin. You go back to 2016, UTEP had their best season in team history. They put themselves on the map. This was their last WAC championship of 2 that they had in the conference. This is, of course, a team who hung a basketball championship in the rafters back in '66. UTEP was flying high, but they would eventually taper off. Meanwhile, Idaho was at their lowest point in 2016, 0-12 on the season. However, over the years, Idaho would rebuild. They won 2 WAC championships in 2018 and on stream in 2022. These are teams going in they're going in separate directions and appropriately separated in 2024 with the Miners going to the CUSA. However, UTEP's deal, as with a lot of teams in this new CUSA, isn't working out, and they're looking to Mountain West. Idaho, in a lot of ways, is tied to the hip with New Mexico State. Both these teams started garnering wins and respect around the same time. Of course, you had New Mexico State making, 3 BCS appearances, 2019, 2022, or 2021, and 2023 last season. Meanwhile, you had Idaho winning their 2 WAC championships. These are teams that have recently picked up the pace and were no-brainers for the Mountain West to pick up. And for UTEP, they're also a very historic team for a lot of the members still there. Rivalries with New Mexico State, New Mexico, in the old WAC. You also have Air Force that they used to play all the time. But that's move number 1. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a big move. Congratulations to UTEP for moving on to the Mountain West current power conference. Let's see if they'll be able to keep that title. But yeah, it definitely should be an interesting move for them.
Pig Bear?
Yeah, this is just the Mountain West doing smart geographical moves. I wish people would copy this in other realms. But good job for UTEP and Idaho.
This gets the Mountain West back up to 12. It's 14 that they're eyeing. And right now, if you're Mr. Mountain West up in your boardroom, you got a dartboard on the wall, and you're chucking in 2 directions. You're either looking to the FCS in teams like Sac State or the Montanas, or you're looking in FBS to those shiny Dakota schools who've racked up a ton of wins in the Missouri Valley in their decade of being there. So those are the 2 spots you're looking at, and we'll look back to the Missouri Valley. The Missouri Valley has been a conference since 1925. They've fielded teams for years, but interestingly, aside from the American Conference, they're the only FBS conference who has never played in a BCS bowl. You had Georgia Southern for the SoCon doing it. You had Arkansas State do it for the Sun Belt. You had, most recently, Stephen F. Austin in the Southland. Every other conference has at least sent somebody up there. And you look at like the Conference USA, who formed from nothing in the 90s and has a national championship claim. And you look to your regional rival in the MAC, who also has a national championship claim. Those being for 2023 UCF and 2002 Marshall, respectively. You look down at that, you look back up at what you're doing, and you see the teams that you have in store, and you think if the Dakotas leave, you're not going to be a competitor. So what do? What do? You try and build a competitor. They're taking Youngstown State from the CUSA to join their ranks in hopes that they can accumulate more wins against lighter competition. Like, from what I'm reading, they think the competition is there. They think this is a competitive team, and they could, in the future, be an actual power. Meanwhile, Wayne State is being brought up from the to the FBS. This is the first time the highest level of football has been in the highest level of college football has been in the Metro Detroit area since Detroit Mercy fielded a football team in the 50s. The Wayne State Warriors, not necessarily a huge deal for college football, but they have had several playoff teams, and they have had some deep playoff runs, including 4 Gateway Conference championships, their last being in 2017. So Youngstown and Wayne State are not only being brought in for the prospect that they'll eventually be competitors, they're being brought in because of their geography. Youngstown, a stone's toss away from the Cleveland area, and also gets them into Ohio. Meanwhile, Wayne State in Detroit, one of the biggest cities in the Midwest. Since you're already firmly in the small market portions of St. Louis, Chicago, Indianapolis, you may as well go for Cleveland and Detroit as well. Especially, and what I'm thinking is the main reason, if you want to compete with the MAC. The MAC expanded recently this season with Duquesne and Johns Hopkins to Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Those are 2 big markets that are adjacent to their current operations, but somewhere that's untapped. It's a future move, and that's what I'm seeing happening here. It'll be interesting to see how these 2 teams develop in Wayne State and Youngstown as they move to the Missouri Valley. They'll be playing basketball in the Horizon League. Wayne State has already been a member for the past year. And Youngstown will be returning full-time next season. Danny?
Yeah, it's congratulations to Wayne State. They're now jumping up to the big leagues. Let's hope that the transition for them could be good because let's face it, we have seen several times of teams who jump from the FCS to the FBS and they just kind of falter and fumble their way right through the FBS until they eventually get that one winning season. So we got to really hope that this league can hold itself together and hopefully all these teams could rise up together. But hopefully that goes well and let's see if they can compete with the MAC because the MAC has had always a good hold over that area. They've always had a strong little competition up there. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can hold on to that area.
Pig Bear?
I think what they're doing is they want active competition with the MAC. And look, the MAC expanded east. It went into Big East, ACC, American territory. They're going to go. They're going to say, "Hey, you looked over these teams. We're going to go into your territory and take these guys." And congrats to Wayne State for him to move up.
I think, first off, one date you can circle is their matchup in the Little Caesars Pizza Bowl. They're potentially bringing both their champions into that game. That would be very entertaining. Right now, that would be projected to be Southern Illinois and Western Michigan in that game. But also, they've been in this position before. You go back to the 2000s. They lost their perennial best team in Tulsa. Tulsa left for the WAC, and that left this conference wandering for about a decade, trying to find its true identity. Up until about 2014, they found a little set of schools in North Dakota State and South Dakota State, and that became their identity moving forward. Let's see if this is a move on that level. Meanwhile, you lose two teams in UTEP and Youngstown, and the CUSA is panicking. Absolutely. You have to be if you're at this point, because you're no longer under that 17 buffer that you need to field FBS conference at this point. A D1 recognized conference that's eligible for the postseason. You're now under that line, and you got to go for whatever. For what my experts were hearing, their obvious site was the Sun Belt, but what I had heard was their first choice were the Miami schools, FAU and FIU. It's easy to see why. FAU is like the ideal of a team ready to move up. They're in a major city. They're in a major city in Miami. They have a lot of football success. They're an emerging basketball power. They've been a baseball contender for years. Those are the big revenue sports. It's rare to have a team that's not only good at all three, but in such a prime market as FAU is. And FIU is slowly but surely trying to creep into that same position. They're on top of the Sun Belt right now. Even with their loss this week, they're in that convo. However, the big problem with them being super worth it is that the Sun Belt agrees that they're super worth it. They're not willing to give them up, but they're willing to compromise. Instead, taking two other relative powers for the conference, those being Middle Tennessee State and Western Kentucky, who are now on their way to the Conference USA for 2024, or after 2024 to 2025. Middle Tennessee was a founding football member back in 2001. They have 2 Sun Belt championships, 5 in basketball as well. Meanwhile, Western Kentucky, their membership in the Sun Belt predates their football support by almost 20 years. They have 8 Sun Belt basketball championships, a football championship in 2015, and an FCS title if you want to go back to 2002. These are teams with football pedigrees that are both on track for bowl appearances this season. That would be solid gets for sure for the Conference USA. Your thoughts on this one, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, for the WAC to start trying to claw their way back to the top, because let's face it,
The CUSA, you
for the
mean?
longest time, the CSA to claw its way back up to try and claw its way back to the top. I mean, it ain't the same CUSA it was before. You know, the CUSA that had UCF, Cincinnati, Louisville, USF, Houston, SMU.
Arkansas.
That was like a really tough. Arkansas, like that was a really tough conference, and here they are trying to replace these teams. That's a really tough order to add, but for the teams that they did get, I think they got some pretty good additions.
Pig Bear?
I agree with Danny, and I've got to say this: one card falls, the entire house falls. It's only continuing to get crazier.
I think that first card, you have to go back a few weeks ago to when SMU TCU do the flip. They have commit to the 1 year in the pack. They get a big deal from the Big 12, and they create a 16-team super conference, and now everyone's looking at that jealously. You see the SEC now expanding. You see the pack going to 16. And the one exception to that, I think, is the Big Ten, because apparently a rift has been forming over the past few years between the Big Ten and its most recent one of its most recent acquisitions, Notre Dame. Notre Dame was and is one of the most storied programs in all of college football. There are certain things about the Notre Dame program that are ubiquitous to the sport. The problem is with being an independent, you never really had the pedigree to prove it. Notre Dame had been having middling success in the late 2000s after a very successful late 90s, early 2000s period. So then in 2009, Notre Dame inks a deal for a few years later to join the Big Ten. What that does is not only does it give the Big Ten a championship game, but it also puts Notre Dame in what people thought was the best conference in the country. You got to remember, this was a conference that made Northwestern and Illinois powers in the 2000s. Ones that are competing for the Rose Bowl at one point. That was still in recent memory at the time. You still had teams competing. Michigan's early dynasty in the 2010s was on the rise. That was just starting to get formed. So Notre Dame had high hopes entering the Big Ten. The problem was, over a decade later, this move has not worked out for the Irish as much. They have 2 Big Ten championships in 2015 and 2019. The problem is, they didn't want to win Big Ten titles, they wanted to win national titles. They haven't played the national championship at all in their time, and they haven't played at all in the championship at all since 1998, the first season of the BCS championship. And on that note, Notre Dame has only appeared in the BCS Bowls 3 times since joining the Big Ten. All 3 they lost. Those are 2 Rose Bowl losses and a Cotton Bowl loss in 2020. So now the Irish, apparently something they've been mulling over for years, are leaving the Big Ten for football as of 2025. They'll be returning to their independent status, joining Army and Navy as the only 3 independent schools in college football, potentially joined by some others, because there are rumors about teams leaving their conference. We don't know what will happen with St. John's if the Yankee Stadium deal falls through. We don't know what... We're hearing rumors about UMass and UConn taking their leave from an increasingly competitive Big East. We'll see what happens there. But the big takeaway is that Notre Dame wants to call their own shots. They want to make their own schedule. And they want more... And I guess they want more breathing room to actually compete, as opposed to them being put in chokehold with the Big Ten. Look at how many top-level teams have come through in the past few years. Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Iowa. When Indiana is winning a BCS Bowl ahead of you, you know you got to think about what's going on here. Notre Dame will remain a Big Ten member in other sports, or it's similar to in real life how Notre Dame is a member of the ACC. However, regardless, what are your thoughts on this move, Danny? Is this a good move for Notre Dame?
I don't really think it's going to be the best move for them, mostly because that, yes, you do have control, and yes, Notre Dame's entire identity is based on the 3 pillars of Catholic, independent, and private, but they're leaving behind their major arch rivals like Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, and others to be now an independent. And yes, they do have history being an independent, or there's only so much time that a history can be as an independent to maintaining that success. So it's going to be all really interesting to see how they perform from here on.
Big Bear?
I like this for Notre Dame. I think they struggle with pillars: Catholic, Independent, and private. And I think they maybe can enter a scheduling agreement. Looks. Well, I think Notre Dame, it is important to play your rivals, and I hope they keep a lot of those rivalries intact. Who want to see a reunitement of Catholics, convicts, maybe Clemson, Notre Dame? They had some good games throughout the years. Florida State, Notre Dame, sorry.
We can say hell. This one's fine. That one's fine. It's the one I said on that other show that you're not allowed to say.
Yeah. Play some, and we have some other West Coast schools like Washington or Oregon.
This does give a lot of scheduling freedom for sure.
Sorry, Oregon reunite some rivalries like Pitt. Notre Dame Pitt used to be a big deal.
Big Ten likely to agree to a scheduling agreement. We're not entirely sure. That's still not put on paper yet, but it seems like the most likely option. Though the Big East is an entertaining option for Notre Dame as well. I would also note the Big Ten, now that you're down to 12, or now that you're no longer on an odd number, you're down to 12. You can get a pair. You could look, and right now the big pair that we're looking at for the Big Ten are Pitt and Syracuse. Those are the ones that look like might be happening. This puts the Big Ten in their football or foothold in Pennsylvania, then sends them to New York. You could also have Rutgers as well, potentially. A lot of places to go for Michigan, or for the Big Ten. We will talk about Michigan, though. That's our first stop on our games this week. The Michigan Wolverines improving to 9-0 with a 24-10 win on stream over Iowa. The Michigan Wolverines now control their own destiny in the Big Ten. With this big win, does this prove that Michigan is the team to beat in the Big Ten Conference, Danny?
Yes, it does. Michigan is still undefeated. They were ranked number 1. We had to see where they place after the new top 25, but also they are performing really well. They've beaten everyone. I think they deserve to be that shot as the premier Big Ten team.
Higbear?
Yeah, good job, Michigan. They're probably the number 1 team in the country right now.
The only team still hot on their coattails is Ohio State, who traveled to Happy Valley and put on a show along with the Nittany Lions. One of the best games we've seen on stream. It was just rifle after rifle, big play after big play. At the end of the day, though, with 12 seconds to go, it was Ohio State on a bomb that gave the Buckeyes a 42-35 win on the road over Penn State. Ohio State now 8-1. They now sit firmly in second place in the conference behind Michigan. A little fun history fact in 2KU. Ohio State and Michigan have never met in the postseason before. They've only ever played as a regular season game. So if these two teams ride out their schedules, they of course play each other the final week of the year in Ann Arbor. Let's say Michigan wins. Let's say Michigan wins, puts Ohio State at 10-2. They will play each other again in the Big Ten Championship a week later. What are your thoughts on that, actually, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, that game was such amazing. I think we had more points. I think it was 43 points scored in the fourth quarter alone. It was a great game, back and forth, and a ton of different major plays. We were thinking, all right, this time they're gonna tie it. Oh, they're scoring 1 drive. All right, up here comes Penn State. They score in 2 drives, and then going back and forth and back and forth. It was an amazing game, and definitely helps shape up both Michigan and Ohio State as the 2 teams in the Big Ten.
Pigbear?
Yeah, what a game we've had. We had in Happy Valley. But I think the game is going to play a lot into the postseason this year.
Hmm.
And hell, even having it twice would be awesome.
We'd have to call it the games.
The games.
If we play it twice. Of course, there's one little team who can throw a wrench in all of that, and that's Indiana next week. They play the Buckeyes in Columbus. We might have to play that one on the Discord server just to see what happens. That could be a stunner to the system. Speaking of back and forth games, how about Kansas taking on BYU in KC? The Jayhawks were a one-loss team entering this game. BYU still reeling from a loss to Iowa State. But the Cougars rally here to get a 54-50 overtime win over the Jayhawks and now take the lead in the division. Danny?
Yeah, that was a great matchup, and I do think that. Wait, which game again?
BYU
Sorry?
Kansas.
BYU Kansas. That BYU Kansas. It was like a fun back and forth game. That this game definitely helps define like the North Division, and BYU came into Kansas and pulled out the shocker. So definitely BYU seemed like they might be the potential favorite to win it in their first year.
Big Bear?
Like I said, the realignment cards are going crazy. The normality of college football games are also going crazy. Both cards are going down. Let's ride out the storm in each. I'm here for it. Good job, BYU.
We didn't expect BYU would be playing as well as they are immediately entering their membership of the Big 12, but they're ready to play for Big 10 championships now, which is exciting to see. Let's move now to a game that might have decided the ACC's Atlantic Division. 26-21, Wake Forest heads to Tallahassee and hands the Florida State Seminoles their second loss of the year. Once again, 26-21, Wake, as 3.5-point favorites, get the win over Florida State. Danny?
Yeah, it is a big game and does definitely help define a little more of the Atlantic Division. However, you can't really say they are the number one team in the division just yet because this week, Wake Forest plays against Clemson. That's going to be interesting to see who will come up on top.
It's a winner-take-all game. If Wake wins, they clinch the ACC Atlantic, I believe.
Yes.
If Clemson wins, they can clinch the Atlantic.
Yep.
So it's really
whoever wins it.
It's a winner-take-all situation in Winston-Salem coming up. Pig Bear?
Yeah, Clemson giving a second lease on life when things look grim after that loss to Duke. And that game will be huge in Winston. It'd be my vote for game of the week. Stream game.
Very well could be. We're going to stay in the ACC where that Duke team you're talking about, we're 5-3. We're a 5-3 team until they rode into Orlando and had to face, if we can get a truck horn, please. Anyone got it on the soundboard? There it is. The Dave Show University Truckers, who pull off their biggest upset of the season, a 10-point underdog. The Truckers win 38-35 over Duke to keep their season alive. The Truckers now 4-5. I believe their next two games are against Florida State and Miami. They have Florida State and Miami and a third game I can't think of right now. But they're favored in the Miami game. Danny, if you could tell me what that other game is.
Yeah, just pulling that up real quick. Just give me 1 second to get it. That other game is against Virginia.
All right, so you're playing two of the weaker teams in two of the middling teams in the division, so to speak, in Virginia and Miami. Those are two winnable games for Dave's show, and if they win both of those, they're going bowling in their first season as ACC members, which just has a huge, would just be huge for the Truckers. Meanwhile, Duke, of course, their season's not over either. They still have to play for bowl games. They have bowl games to play for as well. What are your thoughts on this game, Danny?
Yeah, that both these teams, they are looking like they want to win, they want to compete, and they have a shot of making it big. It's just going to be a matter of can they close out the season because, this season's looking pretty tough and anything could happen at this point.
Big Bear?
Yeah, good job, Dave Show. And hey, let's watch them over the next couple weeks, see if they make a bowl game.
All right. We played this next game on Discord. Don't forget to join the Type of Joey 101 Discord for more exclusive games and also news updates. I got an IRL news update from Danny here that Cincinnati is adding hockey for 2025. That's cool.
Yep.
That's cool. I'd love to see more teams adding hockey in the future. Cough, cough. Detroit Mercy, cough. But meanwhile, Texas A&M on a walk-off field goal, improving to 8-1, getting the 13-10 win over Oklahoma, who has now dropped 2 straight. Who's now dropped 2 this season, going from I believe 6-0, dropping now to 7-2. OU was 4.5-point favorites at home, but Texas A&M ripped their hearts out. And now it seems that they can control their own destiny in the division. Danny?
Yeah, what a crazy game that was. I mean, at first it was looking like it was going to be like a slow defensive battle and it started ramping up. So great job for both these teams from having the game at least being entertaining. Ending by the end, but yeah, Texas A&M with a walk-off field goal, no bad time management or anything like that here. So great job from both these guys.
Pig Bear?
Farmers fight. Sorry, that's the dumbest cheer ever, but good job, Texas A&M, for winning.
Speaking of game-winning field goals, number 2 Utah needed to pull off one against Washington State. The 12.5 point favorites got a scare against the Cougars, but they were able to pull through and get the win in the end, 44-41 on the road. Utah, the number 2 team in the country, but cracks are seeming to show in the facade. They still have a very tough BYU team on the schedule, and they're locking horns potentially with Arizona in the conference championship. These are 2 extremely tough teams to end the year out. This season's not over for Utah, is it, Danny?
Yeah, it's not over for Utah at all. I mean, Utah still has 3 really tough games remaining. Their 3 games include Stanford, USC, and BYU. So that's going to be a really interesting schedule to see play out.
Pig Bear?
Yeah, again, let's watch this play out.
All right, staying in the Pac-12. Staying once again in the Pac-12, where we have what might be one of the biggest point spread upsets this year. UCLA, a 17-point favorite, falling on the road to the Oregon State Beavers. Oregon State improving to 5-4 with a 27-24 win over the now 6-3 Bruins. Danny?
Yeah, I mean, big game by them, and it's a lot of fun points that was happening. So great job for both these teams for winning.
Pig Bear?
A good job on the win.
Congrats to both of these teams for winning. Up next, the team who didn't win. 2 teams that didn't win, actually. The top 2 teams in the SEC. Again, they're both losing, and they're both losing in tandem with each other. Auburn falling on the road 34-19 to Florida, who now gets back to a winning record. They're now 5-4. Meanwhile, Tennessee fell on the road 34-31 to Ole Miss. Auburn was a 10.5 point favorite on the road in the Swamp. Tennessee was a 13-point favorite in Oxford. So now both these teams fall. Only one-loss team remains in the SEC. And can anyone tell me who that is?
Tulane and Vanderbilt.
It is the one-loss team is Tulane. Tulane made the SEC championship last season, sort of by default, since Alabama was on probation last year. And now they've ascended to, okay, this team is an actual contender. In fact, they're the only contender in the SEC right now, as it seems the conference keeps imploding on itself. Danny?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big game by these guys, and great job for a performance by them. And we'll have to see how Tulane will perform and if Vanderbilt or another team will rise up to knock these guys down.
I believe in terms of current projections, I believe it's likely that Tulane will play Tennessee for the conference championship right now. Because Tennessee... Tennessee does play Vandy, of course, to end the year. You saying?
Also, right now, if you're paying attention to the screen, Wild West College got their first ever win.
First win in program history. 20-14, they get it over Blue Ridge, South Carolina. Up next, we'll wrap our scores. Actually, first, Pig Bear, what does Auburn and Tennessee's losses mean for the state of the SEC and for the SEC championship race?
That the SEC, two best teams in the SEC right now are probably Vanderbilt and Tulane.
And what does that say?
The SEC is not as powerful as they used to be.
That 2023 championship looks more and more like a mirage right now. SEC new teams on the way, of course, next season. Either they have a new contenders that are dropping on their laps, or hey, they have more padding. But real quick, I'll just touch on another interesting oddity. Probably the biggest point spread upset of the year so far, at least in conference. Western Kentucky were 18-point favorites heading on the road to Lafayette, but dropped to the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns 27-20. The 18-point underdogs keep their season alive with a much-needed win. Anything to say on this, Danny?
Which game, sorry?
Louisiana pulling off an 18-point upset over Western Kentucky.
And Louisiana, they have been sneakily getting through. I believe Louisiana's now at 5-4 after starting the season.
Louisiana is 3-6.
Oh yeah, that Louisiana, they're still trying to get to a bowl game. So let's see how they perform.
They would need to win out to make a bowl game. Danny or Pig Bear?
Yeah, it's not over, but hey, Louisiana's got a chance.
All right. Now, I hope you guys have some BCS projections ready, because we sure do. We are now very much in November. Those BCS bowls are right around the corner. Bowl season itself is right around the corner. And we did this a few weeks ago, but we're bringing it back with the new updates to put together our BCS projections. I'm going to go first with mine. Right now, my BCS championship is the same it was before. I think this race is still Michigan and Utah's to lose. I think those two are your top two teams in the country. And as such, the Big 10 and Big 12 teams are going to have to be the next teams up, which for me are both teams in the top. They're potentially in the top 5 right now. Ohio State, who I think will play Michigan in the conference championship, and Oregon, who I think is going to be the next best team in the Pac-12. I think the Ducks are going to win out, and in spite of being an 11-win team, they're not going to make the conference championship because they didn't win their division. Their one loss was to Utah, naturally. Meanwhile, I think I'm changing my tune on the ACC. My last projection, I had Florida State making it, but I think the ACC is going to have 3 teams making it to the conference championship, 2 of which I think are going to be playing in the championship game. And I think the team that's going to win it is not one that anyone's talking about right now. It's Georgia Tech, who I have winning the conference. Tech has quietly been rattling off a lot of wins and is quietly taking the Coastal by storm. In their first year, the Yellow Jackets have been accruing win after win. They, of course, have a tough loss earlier in the year to Clemson. But I think they rally and win over Clemson in the conference championship. Speaking of, I do have Clemson later. I think I have them playing in the Orange Bowl against the SEC's runner-up. We'll talk about who I have winning the SEC here. The Sugar Bowl, I have Tulane. I think the Sugar Bowl is Tulane, my SEC champ, and they take on the ACC's runner-up, Clemson, so that the Orange will be Georgia Tech and Auburn, who I have as my second-place team in the conference. Meanwhile, the Cotton Bowl, Big 12 champions, I'm pinning it on Texas A&M. I think they win their division, and I think they win the conference championship over BYU. And I have them playing once again against my BCS buster in Rice. I think the Rice Owls are going to ride into Arlington undefeated to play their former Southwest foe. Meanwhile, from there, I think we have another Big 12 team making it. I think Oklahoma State is going to be playing there. I think OK State wins out, but I don't think they're going to make it to the conference championship. The same thing as Oregon, and I think they have a date in the Fiesta against an undefeated San Jose State. I think the Spartans are the next best team, or another BCS buster, or a Mountain West bid rather. And I'll wrap off with my Peach Bowl. I have UCF winning the Big East. I think really take your pick between UCF, Cincinnati, or USF who could be here. I think UCF is the strongest of these three right now. And I think they play against Wake Forest, who has, since the BCS became a concept, never played in a BCS Bowl. This will be their first time. And I think that will provide an entertaining matchup of black and gold. Danny, do you have your BCS projections in?
Yes, I do. And for my BCS championship, I have Michigan playing against Utah. For the Rose Bowl, I have the second place Ohio State taking on second place Oregon. I have for the Big East I actually have Cincinnati winning it. I actually really like Cincinnati, and I think they're going to be taking on at-large Georgia Tech. Heck, for the ACC, you might be wondering who won it. Well, I gave it to Wake Forest, and I think they're going to play against at-large UCF, a battle of black and gold in Miami. For the Fiesta, I got San Jose State playing there. I have them playing against Big 12 runner-up BYU. But who won the Big 12, you might be thinking? I gave it to Texas A&M, and they're going to be playing against BCS buster Rice for Battle of Texas.
What's your peach?
My Peach Bowl, it's Cincinnati, Georgia Tech. That's the...
Oh, I think your sugar is what you're missing.
Yep. My sugar, I got SEC champion Tulane playing against third place Big Ten team, Wisconsin.
From Wisconsin, then. Pig Bear, do you have your BCS busters in, or your BCS predictions in?
All right. Give me Michigan versus. Let me pull up my rankings first and foremost. All right. I'll just give you my conference champions. I think Clemson will win the ACC. I think Vanderbilt will win the SEC. Give me UCF winning the Big East, and give me Big Ten runner-up of Ohio State, and Texas A&M somehow keeping it straight, and San Jose State from the Mountain West. And Cotton Bowl, give me a Big 12 run. No, that never mind. That's dumb. Actually, Rose Bowl, give me a Oregon in the Rose Bowl.
Ohio State, Oregon, you're saying? All right.
Yeah, Ohio State, Oregon. Give
Orange.
me a Cincinnati making. Give me a Clemson versus Kansas in the orange.
Picking Kansas to make it. All right.
They just. My bad. I don't know why I said that.
Let me. KU is still a 2-loss team. They could still theoretically make it to a BCS bowl, but.
Yeah. Sorry, I need to pull up the rankings so I can just get more accurate. Actually, Clemson Auburn in the Orange Bowl. Let me rephrase that. Clemson Auburn.
Clemson Auburn. Sugar.
Vanderbilt versus. Sorry, I'm trying to cross-reference the rankings to get my prediction, and I forgot to pre-prep this. Vanderbilt versus give me Florida State staying relevant and making it. Actually, they lost. Wake Forest.
Vandy Wake. Fiesta.
Rivalry. Fiesta. Who did I project for that one? That was San Jose State. Give me San Jose State. Give me my Buster here. Give me actually don't give me Buster. Give me Tulane playing San Jose State.
In the Fiesta, all right. Cotton.
Con, I picked again Texas A&M
Tamu.
and give me Penn State.
Penn State. And your
My national
Peach Bowl?
championship Peach Bowl. That was UCF versus BYU.
BYU. And your Natty?
Michigan versus Utah.
All right. All right. I did notice.
So you got some bowl projections?
What's up?
Do you want to go? Do you say what you say?
I was
saying what after.
I was gonna transition to the next part of the video. One team I did notice that Big Bear didn't include is actually a team that's very important in our news. The first team to clinch a conference championship spot. Danny, take it away.
Yep, that Rice is our first team to clinch a conference championship spot. They are at least guaranteed to appear. Whether they'll be as number one, that's going to be up to them, but they're definitely guaranteed to at least appear.
We're right now seeing the Conference USA race boil down to 3 teams. Rice already in, and right now it's either between Southern Miss or East Carolina who are in that race for second. There are some outsider chances as well, but those are the big 3 right now. I think Rice is still the favorite, regardless of who they end up facing. But from there, let's now move on.
Do you have some bowl projections at all, or do you want to just skip over that?
I do have full bowl projections, but I don't. But I don't want to have this show take forever. I will be posting those in our. I will be posting those in headlines. My 2024 bowl projections, and I believe
have my own.
Since Danny has his own, he'll post them there as well. But now let's move on to the 2K Week 12 Top 25. We only have so many more of these. There's only 2 more weeks of this regular season after this one. Crazy to think this season's almost over, and it feels like it's just started. But let's get underway. First up, the 2 unbeatens in the Power 5, of course, make up your top 2. That's going to be Michigan and Utah, both sitting at 9-0. Meanwhile, below them, 3 8-1 squads: Oregon, Oklahoma State, and Ohio State. All 3 certainly in BCS consideration. Behind them now at number 6 is UCF. They're not letting that one loss slow them down. Wisconsin making a huge jump again. They're now number 7. It's crazy what beating Ohio State can do for your morale. Penn State now slipping to number 8 after their second loss of the year. They've now lost to both Iowa and Ohio State back-to-back after going 7-0. An unfortunate recent slump. Hopefully one that can be corrected before the end of the year. Number 9 now is Clemson, sitting at 7-2. They're back in the top 10. And now at number 10 is Cincinnati of the Big East. Number 11, Texas A&M from the Big 12, followed by number 12, the SEC's Auburn, falling out of the top 10. And at their highest point in program history in the top 25, number 13, San Jose State, now a stone's toss away from the top 10, something they've never been in before. Another team who's never been in the top 10 is Wake Forest, now at number 14, and a third team here in this strange row, a team who hasn't been in the top 10 in over 80 years. That's Rice of the CUSA, now 9-0 rather, sitting at number 15. They are now tied for their highest all-time rank with their 2006 season. Number 16, Florida State, falling after their loss now. They're 7-2. Number 17, the SEC's Tulane. In spite of being second in the rankings, they're now projected to be your favorite in the SEC, followed by another SEC squad, number 18, number 18, Tennessee. Number 19, BYU, climbing back up with that big win over Kansas. And wrapping up, number 20, USF of the Big East is 8-1. Now at number 21, Iowa, falling, of course, after their loss to Michigan, but not by much. The Hawkeyes are still 8-2 and look to be one of the better teams of the Big Ten. they have an outside chance of making a BCS Bowl. They would need to win out in a schedule that still includes a Wisconsin matchup as well. You still have Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Nebraska on the schedule for the Hawkeyes. Number 22, Oklahoma, dropping like a stone after their second loss to Texas A&M. Everybody rejoice. Everybody celebrate. Shout it from the rooftops. Vanderbilt is now in our top 25. The 8-2 Commodores are currently sitting as the fourth most likely team to make the SEC championship. Now at number 24, ranked for the first time in 18 years, is Louisiana Tech, playing out of the WAC, having one of their best seasons in recent memory. And now at number 25, returning to the rankings, is the Pac-12's Arizona. Next teams being mentioned are Georgia Tech, Hawaii, Indiana, Columbia, Georgia, USC, Kansas State, Virginia Tech, Michigan State, Duke, Air Force, Kansas, and NC State. Danny?
Wow, that's a lot. So,
Just general thoughts about the top 25?
and that very interesting to see how the top 25 played out, especially with the Big Ten matchups. That you can see Wisconsin jumping over some of these teams, and also glad to see Iowa slightly rising the rankings, surprised even though they lost. So
They did
I
go
think
up,
that's
yeah.
just I think that's just maybe the committee rectifying last week's mistake, maybe.
Mayhaps.
But definitely good job to the Hawkeyes and some interesting movements.
Good job to Vandy and La Tech cracking the top 25 for the first time this year. Pig Bear? Pig Bear, general thoughts on top 25 here? All right. I think the one team that I feel like the committee's... Oh,
Paper left.
all right. I think the one team the committee is going to regret leaving out this week is probably Georgia Tech. They're right on the doorstep. I think come next week, Georgia Tech is going to be a ranked team for certain. But let's real quickly send this home. We have our games for next week all lined up. One game I don't have written down here, but I do want to mention Harvard and Columbia play this week in what's sure to be an extremely entertaining game. The Columbia Lions are currently in the midst of a dynasty. They've won back-to-back Ivy League championships, and they're trying to do something a team hasn't done in a decade, and that's win 3 in a row. The team in their way, the team who did it, is Harvard. Who did it last was Harvard. The Harvard Crimson. Harvard Crimson, probably the most likely chance Columbia has on their schedule to lose this year. If anyone can dethrone the Giant and slay the beast, it's the Harvard Crimson. This game is in Boston, I believe. And I'm sure for the 2K's equivalent to the Sickos Committee, all eyes will be on this one. Because if Columbia wins, at that point you really have to start considering the BCS for the Lions. But right now, I think Columbia still wins this. I think their eyes are on a greater prize. Danny?
I think Columbia does win this one as well. I think Columbia will do this thing well, and I think Columbia will beat Harvard.
All right. I believe this is Pigbert joining back with us. We're talking Columbia Harvard. What's your pick in that one?
Give me the Lions close.
All right. To an all-time classic rivalry, the Little Brown Jug. Michigan heads to Minneapolis to take on the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Michigan favored by 10.5 on the road. I like the Wolverines here. Danny?
What's the game? Sorry?
Michigan, Minnesota.
Give me Michigan. That's going to be an easy dub for the Wolverines.
Big Bear?
Give me Michigan.
Michigan all on the board. From there, Kansas and Iowa State play each other. A very powerful rivalry in college basketball that actually has a lot of implications on the Big 12 in football. Both these teams are playing near the top of the division. KU favored on the road by 6.5. I like Kansas to win, get an 8-win season for the third straight year. Give me the Jayhawks. Danny?
Give me the Jayhawks as well.
Last time Kansas has had. Pardon? Go ahead.
Give me the Jayhawks.
Last time Kansas has had 3 straight 8-win seasons. You have to go back to the 1910s for that. 1917 to 1919 was last time KU had 3 straight 8-win seasons. But up next, we have an SEC matchup that is sure to determine the fate of the conference. Tulane heads to Auburn to take on the Tigers. Auburn favored by 3 at home, trying to hand Tulane their second loss of the year. Give me the Auburn Tigers to win at home. Danny?
Yep, I think Auburn also. Actually, I think it's gonna be Tulane's gonna win this game close.
Pig Bear?
Give me Tulane.
Up next now, more Big 12 action. Oklahoma State at 8-1 heads to 8-2 Kansas State for a noon kickoff matchup. OK State favored by 5.5 on the road. Give me the Pokes to win this one. Danny?
Give me the Wildcats. I think the Wildcats win this one close.
Pig Bear?
Give me Kansas State.
Up next, the matchup we're all having our eyes on, the winner take all in the winner take all in the ACC. 7-2 Clemson, 8-1 Wake Forest. Wake favored by 3 at home in Winston-Salem. Last time they played in a huge division clinching game, the last 2 times rather, they won it. NC State and Florida State. They just need to complete the trifecta against the Tigers, and the ticket to Charlotte for the first time is theirs. Wake favored by 3 at home. I like the Demon Deacons to send it home and complete the trilogy. Danny?
Give me Wake. I think Wake Forest win this one.
Pig Bear?
As much as they bullcrapped around and this fell into their lap, I think Clemson finally wakes up. Give me the Tigers winning at Winston.
From there, let's move now to Blacksburg. Virginia Tech reeling after a loss to North Carolina. They fell to 5-4. This has been a pretty disappointing year for the Virginia Tech Hokies, but they can still make it right with a win against NC State. North Carolina State, after starting 6-0, has lost 3 straight. Does the skid continue here? NC State favored by 6.5 on the road. I like Virginia Tech, though, to bounce back and get bowl eligible. Danny?
And that I think the skid ends here. I think NC State gets the win over a reeling NC State. Or a reeling Virginia Tech.
Pig Bear?
Give me NC State winning.
Up next, Michigan State and Wisconsin. The 7-2 teams everyone forgets about, at least not now, thanks to Wisconsin's win over Ohio State. Michigan State, sliding under the radar in recent weeks. They're favored at home by 3.5 over ranked Wisconsin. And Spartan Stadium, as a rival, I can tell you that's a difficult place to play. I think Sparty gets its biggest win of the season over Wisconsin. Danny?
I think Wisconsin win this game.
Pig Bear?
Give me Sparty.
Up next, remember those 2 teams I told you were competing for the second spot in the conference championship in the CUSA? Well, they're playing next Saturday. The Southern Miss Golden Eagles taking on the East Carolina Pirates. 7-2 Southern Miss and 6-3 ECU. USM favored on the road by 6. I like Southern Miss to make their way to the conference championship game and set up a grudge match against the Rice Owls. Danny?
Give me East Carolina. They're playing at home. There's going to be a really big environment for them. This is a rivalry game. I know that. And I think East Carolina, they will win this game and then will face off against Rice in Birmingham.
Pig Bear?
Dowdy Ficklin should be rocking. Give me the Pirates.
All right. Another game that could determine the future, that could determine the December to come. Indiana, 7-2, entering the shoe to take on an 8-1 Ohio State. Ohio State's played plenty of close games and plenty of classics, and they've survived all of them this season. OSU favored by 6.5 against the Hoosiers. I like the Buckeyes to remain 8-1, or to advance to 9-1 rather. Danny,
Give me the Buckeyes.
Pig Bear,
Give me the Buckeyes.
up next. 8-1 Oregon heads on the road to play a slipping UCLA. UCLA now 6-3 after starting the season 5-0. Oregon is 8-1. Their one loss to the number 2 team in the nation, undefeated Utah. Oregon favored by 7 on the road. Give me the Ducks, Danny.
I'm going to give it to the Ducks as well. The Ducks have been playing really well. UCLA's been a bit on a skid. I think the Ducks will win this.
Pig Bear.
Give me the Ducks.
Actually, while we're on it, I believe Utah clinches with the win over USC, right?
Yes. You need one more win to clinch it. At least clinch it. I believe.
So they can clinch over Stanford, right? Because they have 2 more conference games on the schedule.
Let me just check on that real quick.
Their last game, of course, is against BYU.
Paper, you give your predictions at a fact check list.
Give me a USC, Benny USC.
It's a Oregon UCLA.
Yeah,
Give me the yeah. Give me Oregon.
All right, we'll let Danny check that real quick.
Hopefully our dog team will load faster. Utah only needs one more win, so they can clinch it with the win over Stanford.
So Oregon's gonna need help it's gonna be help from their arch rival in Stanford if they want to play in that conference championship game. If you go back to last season, Stanford was in the lead when they fell to Washington State, and that was the move that got Oregon in the conference championship. So in a roundabout way, Stanford has helped Oregon get to the conference championship before, and they do it again. On to the West Coast 2 Mountain West matchups. The top 2 teams are getting tested. Air Force, after their loss to San Jose State, is now 8-1. They take on 6-3 Boise State, the Academy. Favored by 2.5. I like Air Force to improve to 9-1. Danny?
Which team, sorry?
Boise Air Force.
I'm going to give it to Air Force. The game is taking place in Colorado Springs. Air Force has been playing really well, and I think the Falcons will win this.
Pig Bear?
Give me Boise.
In an upset. Boise's known for an upset or two. Meanwhile, 2 former WAC foes facing off now as Mountain West opponents, as San Jose State, now 9-0, takes on a surprisingly good 7-2 Nevada. Don't sleep on the Wolfpack. They already have an upset win over Boise under their belts. The Spartans are favored by 4.5. I like San Jose State to improve to 10-0. Danny?
Give me the upset. I've seen teams go that are ranked go into Nevada and lose in Nevada, and I think this will happen again. Give me Nevada.
Reno is a death trap, but I think the Spartans escape it. Pig Bear?
Reno's a death trap, and Spartans will escape it. Give me San Jose State.
All right, and now, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else, our game of the week from the Big East Conference. The Big East South added 4 teams. The Big East Conference added 4 teams in 2022 for the 2024 season. Little did we know that all 4 of them, or that 3 of those 4, will be competing for their BCS spot and competing for that conference's championship. The division and the conference of the Big East runs through UCF, USF, and Cincinnati. And on Saturday night, 2 of those teams are on collision course with each other. UCF in Orlando hosts the Bearcats. The UCF Knights are 8-1. After losing in week 2 to Dave's show, they have rattled off 6 straight wins.
Week 3.
Or week 3. Since losing week 3 to Dave Show, they rattled off 3 straight wins, or 6 straight wins to improve to 8-1. Meanwhile, Cincinnati's 1 loss is to USF. If Cincinnati wins here, they can control their own destiny. Meanwhile, UCF with a win sets up a winner-take-all game on Black Friday in the War on I-4 against their rival USF. The Knights at home are favored by 2.5. I like UCF to win this game. The bounce house environment is one of the most unique in all of college football. Danny.
Give me the UCF Knights to win.
Pig Bear, send us home.
Despite the line being 2.5, and I think the Knights will win. They will not cover. That's how close this game will be. UCF wins by like 1.
That's how you know a game is close, when you can't cover at 1.5 or 2.5.
I mean, they can win by 2 still, and not cover.
Well, the game that's currently on isn't close, but we thank you all for watching today's episode of the 2KU Weekly Podcast. Join us on Saturday night for Bearcats and Knights clashing in Orlando. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and so long from the 2KU.